Good morning, everyone. I was looking at the clock. Good morning, I think. Almost afternoon. But I wanted to go off subject just a little bit, but also a comparison with my situation with my daughter's father and with current media issues going on. I watched the P. Diddy documentary, and I felt like I was just in my face, another predator, another person that was very. Um, I will use terminology, but I also want it to be known that it's not like a diagnosis of any kind, but a very narcissistic behavior of someone that only cares about their self. And everyone around them is um, subject to being their tools, their means of obtaining what they want in any form or fashion. The ability for people not to regard other people's emotions is predatory. It is often held in cycles that they might not even be aware that they're doing. Um, you add money and you add power, political power, local power, fame power into that, and you have a social monster who only cares about their well being and only cares about what they look like, their image. That's something very typical that I dealt with my daughter's father, was how him and me together was a lot to do with how we looked, how he looked. I helped complete an image that was very important to him. He really had a competitive side, and he still does. He's a very competitive individual as far as image. And a lot of that deals with insecurities that he had growing up as a child with many siblings. He wasn't the oldest, he wasn't the brightest, he wasn't the most attractive out of all of his siblings. And they were all very competitive. I remember the first Christmas I went to with them, I was floored because it was like passive aggressive tension with every statement. Everything was a competition, everything was a show. And I felt like I was going into battle, like emotional battle, and my feelings would get hurt. Um, it was it was a time where I was really innocent, and I was very untrained in the lifestyle that I brought myself into, but also that I was brought into by my daughter's father, Brad. And I think back about the love I had for him, and I think back about the the joy, the laughter, how I do call him, the love of my life when I was young and innocent, before I knew healthy love, before I knew what healthy love was, and before I realized the full image of what is a good person and what is a bad person, um, in society standings, and how no matter what society standings are, their image, how a person treats other people ultimately shows you their character, their ethics. And that is something that we're all witnessing with the P. Diddy documentary. We're witnessing an individual who was without a strong male image during his life, and he clung to male images that he met. And I'm sure that he was met with predators, probably similar predators to what he became. The most the most emotional part of me watching it was hearing the phrase about going on a shopping trip, taking someone shopping. Everyone's joking about 50 Cent um, being insulted by P. Diddy saying, I'm going to take you shopping. I'll take you shopping. Um, and that was one of the beginning um, lures that I was given with my daughter's father was shopping trips, several shopping trips, a lifestyle and money that I had not grown up with, and a lifestyle and money that I was in awe of as as most young girls that just grew up a simple life would be. The similarities and the red flags that I had because of the similarities that Brad and my father had are ones I now know and am aware of. But those are ones that I also will teach my children about as they grow up. My relationship with my daughter is strained. The channel is called Three Out of Four Children Love Me and Have a Relationship with Me. And that is the current status of me and my four children. My 17-year-old daughter has a bond with her father built on lies and built on an image that he portrayed to her that she's unaware of the details and the history that I'm aware of. She's unaware of what other people in the community know about him and have experienced from him. So, as a mother, my heart is broken because when I try to tell the truth and when I try to ask my daughter for what she remembers, I met with a wall. I met with a wall of, please don't say bad things about my father. Um, I have never said bad things about her father other than the fact that I hold him accountable for what he did in taking her from me. And I was very blunt with her about the fact that there was no reason for him to take me to court to take her, other than the fact that he told me not to marry the man I was going to marry, and that I wasn't allowed to leave the town that we both lived in, the community. Um, that was his demand. That was his order to me. And when I explained this to my daughter, um, she rejected it. She rejected me saying that I will always hold her dad accountable for what he did in separating our family and separating us as a mother and a daughter. But what this brings me to talk about is um, making sure our future generations are aware, and not only the red flags that we might miss. And I want my children to watch this, and I hope that my grandchildren and future grandchildren and generations watch this channel. And I hope that they learn from the red flags of the history in our family. I want them to be aware that when you are offered extravagant gifts, extravagant shopping trips, um, maybe, maybe they are done out of kindness. Maybe they're done out of love and affection from someone that you met. But look at the people around. Look at the people around that person offering that to you and find out if that is genuine or if it is a predatory behavior of someone that is trying to reel you in with bait. If you are being baited in by a predator with shopping trips, with money, with fame, with a new job, even, this is stuff that psychology experts teach on. I think it's something that psychology experts and professionals deal with the victims later, because no one is talking about this to their children and their families before it happens. I have this channel as hoping to build community for people who have experienced situations and events such as a child custody battle that went wrong, that did not have justice, that did not have a final ruling based on all the facts and all the truth, but was influenced by money, community standing, family names. And I want this channel to also bring light about making sure we train people about their own actions. I tell people that I hold my children accountable in many forms, and I do that their whole life when they're toddlers. Their bad behavior. Um, I call it bad behavior, but really it's just them not knowing. And about how we teach good behavior and how we teach good boundaries, healthy boundaries. And that is a subject that I believe we're missing in society. And what we end up with is the Diddy documentaries. What we end up are the victims that go to court without enough evidence to sway jurors who are untrained about what behavior of predators are and about what victims look like. We're asking jurors to rate according to laws when you have a predator who is trained on charismatic behavior, how to look at jurors, how to woo jurors as he sits there with his big famous name and his attractive demeanor. And we're asking jurors to make a ruling on behavior that no one's training about, behavior and red flags that no one is teaching our youth about. I have a 20-year-old, and I tell my 20-year-old the truth of our history, why his sister isn't with us. He's watched and witnessed the hardships of my healing. He's witnessed me at my strongest, but he's also witnessed me at my weakest when I am most heartbroken from having his sister, who he was so close with as a child. She was 7 when she was taken by the courts from our home. And those two were inseparable. They were loving, they were kind, they were empathetic toward each other. And I loved what I had accomplished with them as siblings. I had disciplinary techniques. One of them was called hugging it out. And hugging it out was a way that I had come up with. These two love each other and their family, and there's nothing really that bad that happened. Maybe someone took a toy, or maybe someone pressed a boundary. And I would have them hug each other until they could tell each other something nice, or they could tell a joke, or they could genuinely forgive each other. And it was something I used when they were younger. And I always think that that was a technique that was successful for them. I joke, I wished I could hug it out with my daughter now. I wished I could have the bond that we had during her whole life. I wish that her brother, my 20-year-old, was aware of how to rebuild his relationship with her. But the 10 years that we have been apart is more than the years that we were together. And now I am left with the reality that 3 out of 4 of my children have been raised with me. They've been nurtured, they've been disciplined, they've been praised by me. And 3 out of 4 of my children are aware of avoiding the predatorial behavior that that created this situation in our life where my daughter was taken. Being able to look back and being able to know that one day all of my children, all of my future generations, I hold to that. That is the motivation that is behind me. I hold to the motivation that truth and honesty and goodness has more power long term in this world, whether you deal with the ethics, whether or not you deal with, you can even talk about the frequency power of energies and emotions. Authenticity is said to be one of the strongest energies in this known universe. And I believe that. I hold to it because I don't want to selfishly look at my situation and crumble. I want to look at my 20-year-old and say, he was hurt. I want to tell him I didn't do everything, I didn't catch every red flag. I did not make the decisions that I wish I had made at every point in my life. But what I do know is I seek knowledge, and I have sought knowledge. And I seek to correct in the future actions of myself and my future generations the wrong that was in our history, in our past. The predatorial behaviors that happen from people. I often tell people that um, I don't think Brad was always sober enough to understand what he was doing. I don't, he actually told me during one of our last conversations that he never meant to take Milena from me. I didn't mean to take her from you, is what he said to me. And my statement back was, I don't think so. And I don't think he meant to. I just think that people don't know how to evaluate their own actions and accountabilities because they're too self-absorbed in their thoughts, in their actions. Taking someone on a shopping trip, is it bait or is it love? Look at the people around them. How is the people around them and what is their relationships? Look at accountability for the ethical actions that they have. Do they have a law abiding income? Are the people in their life genuinely thankful for the generosity they provide, or is it bait? Is it a mechanism for being able to use that person later? That was something I found out about my daughter's father, Brad. The good that he done was done because he would call that favor in later. I watched him help people when they needed money, hand people money. But what I also heard him and witnessed him do was say, you owe me. It's all right. Don't worry about it. You owe me. You'll be able to help me out later. Don't worry. and he would. There was never an unconditional terms that he offered help. The shopping trips that he used to take me on, um, they were they were mind blowing to me. Watching him spend the first one he ever took me on, I remember he spent 700 $700. That was just the number I remember. $700 on the first trip, first time we walked through a store that he took me shopping, and to me that was mind blowing. And that was just one store. That was one store out of one shopping trip that he took me on, buying clothes and buying stuff. And as a 44-year-old mother and woman now, with more education in my history, I now know that there are multiple reasons for that. It was a bait, it was lure. I was being lured in to his image, to him being the good guy. But I also didn't have that great of clothes. I didn't have the money that him and his circle had. I didn't have the image. I didn't have the beautiful clothes. I had good, clean clothes, but I didn't have the name brands that the people he ran with had. And that was a shame on his image. So when I walked in with the new Coach purse um, that I got, he would puff up, and it would make him look good. And later it would be told to me that, why can't I be happy? Why can't you just be happy with what you have? You have an open checkbook. You have every woman's dream. But I didn't, because I didn't have honesty. I didn't have a a life full of true love that was founded on honesty and truth. So as we watch the P. Diddy documentaries and as we watch historical events happen, I hope that we can venture off from the memes and the sarcastic principles of it. And I hope that we can walk away with more meaningful lessons that we teach our children, that we teach our future generations, so that our children and ourselves are not the women on a screen crying and pleading for justice that they may never have, because a jury's also untrained to see through charismatic behaviors of a predator, of a person that only gives when it is beneficial to them and their image. So, to shopping trips and to the bait that we need to train our children on and our future generations on, I hope that we can look at the true relationships, look beyond the image, look beyond what is the reason, why is this person doing that, and look at the relationships of the people they already have before you're there. That is what we need to train our children on, and that's what I hope we can take away from when it comes to the P. Diddy documentaries, when it comes to you gradually over time hearing my story about why 3 of my 4 children are a statistical win, but an emotional loss to me as a mother, and one that I'm devoted to improving. So, again, shopping trips, I hope we learn, and I hope that we look deeper above what they are. Are they an act of love and generosity, or are they an act of a predator using his bait? Either way, by teaching our future generations, the bad of the past and the bad events will be won by good. as long as we speak the truth and as long as we move forward with teaching our children. Have a good day.